This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm speaking with Mark Welser, the artist, and we're going to get an update on Gods of Brutality and also some insights into Savage Dragon. I must say that I knew of Savage Dragon, but I knew very little about the character. But speaking with these gentlemen who are longtime fans and who worked on the book, I've gotten drawn into it, and now I too am a Savage Dragon fan. Greetings and welcome, Mark. How are you?
Hi, hello. How are you? I'm doing well.
I'm doing well as well, thank you. So, Gods of Brutality, we have a second story forming, and it will be out sometime in the future.
Yes.
Am I
So
correct?
far, no work has been started on it, but it's it'll get there.
Okay, awesome. And we have a Dracula series that takes place in the same universe, expanding the Gods of Brutality multiverse, and that will lead into and tie into the Gods of Brutality in some mysterious way to keep us apprehensive.
Yep, that's coming. That's actually what we're working on right now is the Dracula story. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. So we'll see
Fantastic.
how it was supposed to be a one shot. Now it looks like it's going to be 2 issues. By the end, it might be 20. We'll find out.
That'll be awesome, and it adds to the suspense and everything. And I love how you handled mythology, so I'm looking forward to how you're handling horror. And Dracula is a luchador. That much has been leaked out, so that should be a very interesting take on the character.
Yeah, if you're not going to do something interesting or original, there's really no point. I think most everything about Dracula has been said already. So let's make up some new stuff and put him in a new setting and see what he does there, you know?
Very cool. And the graphic novel is coming out too. That's on the horizon to keep us fans satisfied with content until the second series comes out. And I heard that there's a lot of extras in the graphic novel that you might not have gotten if you were collecting the comic as it came out.
Yeah, Rich and I put all that extra stuff together. On our end, the book is done. We just got to wait and see when it'll get printed. But yeah, we had extra stuff. We have all the covers, so all the variant covers, if anybody missed it, those are in there. All the pinups that our friends and very talented people did for us, those are all included. Also, a lot of the extra stuff that I did for the single issues, I didn't want to include. I figured we'll let those stay special just for the issues, but there is some extra stuff. We have a sketchbook page with some sketches by me and Rich, so you can see some of the preliminary stuff that went into designing this book and these characters that everyone loves.
Yes, they're very, very appealing characters, and I'm very grateful to the folks, including and especially you, who are part of the Facebook group, for sharing sketches and pages, and also sharing covers that are really hard to get on the open market. So that I know that that was great in the group, and I'm really looking forward to it in the graphic novel as well.
I'm glad. Yeah, you get to see that the way some of these characters could have looked if we didn't work on them a little bit harder. And you'll be very glad that we didn't go with some of these initial designs for Hercules. It took a while to figure him out, but at one point he had a headband. I thought he needed a headband. Rich disagreed, and he was right. So he doesn't have one.
There has been talk, and I've seen sketches of possible toys, possible D&D figures for role-playing games, and I've seen actually one of the folks that was on the show showed us from another comic book line little figures that were translucent. They were ready to come out. Any updates on the toys?
No, I've designed them. They have to still be sculpted and at some point produced. I don't know what the schedule is like from that perspective. All I know is that I've done pretty much all I can do to make sure that they look okay. So when somebody does go to sculpt them, they can kind of figure out what these guys are supposed to be, because you don't expect the sculptors to know the characters as well as you do. You can assume, draw something. Well, this makes sense to me because I know what they look like from every angle. But I tried to make them as safe and idiot proof as possible. So if there's any questions, they can kind of figure out what everything's supposed to be from these angles that I've provided. But no, I don't know when those are be coming out, honestly. But sooner rather than later, I would hope. Fingers crossed. I don't know.
I'm looking forward to those, and I've promised that when they come out, I will integrate them into one of the interactive storytelling adventures that I have. Next time we're in the underworld, I'll stick them somewhere, and they could be either non-player characters or unexplained people that happen to be in the underworld doing their thing in the distance, while the players or the storytellers are doing their thing in the middle of the board. So
they'll
I'm
like
looking
that.
forward to that as well.
Yeah, great.
Now, something new that you've worked on is coming out, and I'm really excited to learn more about it. The Savage Dragon fan edition that was written and drawn by fans, and it's been a long time coming, and I've heard great things about it. Would you care to share a little bit more about this particular project?
Yes, it's called Super Freaks. It's coming out through Image Comics in June, I believe, is the release date for that. It's all done. It was initially, there's a podcast called the Savage Fincast that our friends Jim, Raven, and Craig, Jim Purcell, Craig Olson, and Raven Perez, they do a podcast dedicated to Savage Dragon specifically, and their other Eric Larson projects. And they were celebrating their 10-year anniversary of this show based on Savage Dragon. And they were thinking, well, what can we do that would be special to celebrate? And initially, Jim Purcell wanted to do like a fanzine, like a published book to kind of get the message out. This is before they had the idea to do a podcast, and they just wanted to do something. So it kind of comes back to that original idea of putting out a book. So Craig got a hold of, some people from the community that he knows are big Dragon fans and are very passionate about the book and also the podcast to participate. And they was going to put a book together, and then the 10th anniversary would have contests or some kind of giveaways to hand them out to listeners of the show. Got permission from Eric Larson ahead of time to make sure that it was okay that we're making books of his characters. And he said, that's fine. And then when it was all done, Craig sent it to Eric and said, here we go. And he says, we should just publish this through Image Comics instead. So that's what we're at now. So it's going to be coming out through Image. There's a lot of creators in there that are very passionate about the book. So it's not just whoever was handy and could do something. It's these people have their own ideas, what they think these characters should do. And it's really cool. I think every story came out really, really good. There's not a dud in them, and they're all very different too.
They span the whole career of Savage Dragon? They span the whole continuity? Okay.
Yeah, there's stuff from when Dragon was a cop. There's stuff from Malcolm, his son, and there's some stories that don't even have any dragons in them. My story is about one of the characters, Sergeant Marvel. Some of them try to tie into the continuity of the book. Some of them are wildly original and could never fit into the continuity. So it kind of runs the gamut,
So this is not totally canonical. It's kind of like alternate history.
Yeah, it's. I would not read this and expect it to tie into continuity at all, unless you're very creative and can try to find a way to make it work. But there are alternate dimensions, so these could be Elseworld stories.
And I will ask you about that very shortly. As you know, through knowing you and speaking to you primarily, and also with Rich and Gavin and some of the other folks I've interviewed that were tied to the Savage Dragon community one way or another, I've become a fan, but especially of the mythical material. So that would be the Hercules, Thor, God World stories, pretty much in Godtown and so forth. And I had a lot of questions about that. Would you mind answering some of them so this way I can get a better picture of what I'm reading? I did receive your compendium. I ordered that and received it, and that
you got
helped a
one.
lot. Yes, as did the online wiki. That too is very helpful, but still there's areas of background I don't quite get. In 250, which is the last time Hercules appeared, he was bludgeoned when Thor's strange son rescued him from, I guess, the jail he was in. And you see the hammer going up and down, you see a lot of blood, and Gavin, I believe, that said that, or Rich, I don't remember who said that their impression was that Hercules was killed, although they're not sure. What is your take on that?
I really hope that that's not the end of Hercules. I would hope that Eric wouldn't let him die on a backup story illustrated by Rich Woodall. It was a big event like that, I think, should happen in the main story. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot more Hercules at some point. Whether he's
No, go ahead.
Whether he's disfigured or permanently injured, we'll have to see. But I think we're definitely going to see him again.
Yeah, he's had his arms ripped off pretty early on, and he's died before, at least once that I could remember at the moment, where he went with the SOS and they all died, and then they were back again, like in an issue or two. Then going back, and I got the issues in the archives and the graphic novels in random order, so I kind of read them randomly, and I'm trying to read the whole thing from the beginning, initially focusing on the mythological elements, but then I'll eventually read all the stories so I can get a bigger picture. And in the 40s, he appeared in 45 and 46. Basically, he was like the loyal soldier of the All God. And the All God was kind of like a construct made of all the All Fathers that are in the image pantheon. The All God was concerned because Thor and some other gods wanted to go to Earth, which was off limits since the gods gave people metal, iron, I believe, and humanity rebelled against the gods. There's actually a series of books about that. Do you know if the story ties into those books at all? There was a whole story about an ancient Mycenaean civilization that I think there are like 12 books. And it covers the time when the gods walked among people and there was some revolt against the gods. And do you know if those influence this story in any way, or just
the behind the scenes stuff for this? I don't know. I know Eric did do some research on some of these guys before he put them in the book, but what exactly, I don't know. I'm getting a low battery here. Yeah, I've never heard of these stories before. Those are news to me. When it comes to mythology, I don't know anything about that. But maybe if it sounds like something that you're familiar with, I'm sure there was some kind of inspiration there.
Yeah, it's the author's going to be on the show in like the end of April, in early May. So who knows? She might have been inspired by the Savage Dragon stories. It might have been the other way around. I will ask that question. And basically he succeeds and he fails, and he succeeds in accomplishing what he was assigned to do, but then he fails because the space over Godworld's been invaded, and people from Earth actually made it there, and there are all sorts of complications. And then the next time we see him is in the 50s, which we'll talk about some other time. Do I have the gist of the story correct so far?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hercules, and no, that was in the 50s. Yeah, no, so up till the 50s, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay, so next time I'll summarize the 50s to see if I got that right. And we've already touched upon alternate timelines. How does that work exactly in Savage Dragon? Because it seems to be a very fluid universe. And like, for instance, the God Home was in an alternate universe to begin with, but their Earth had been destroyed, and Dragon comes from another Earth. And yet the gods, according to Thor, they were able to go into this other reality and visit the Dragon's Earth. So it wasn't that big a deal for the gods to go from one alternate universe to another. So I was trying to, again, wrap my brain around it. And it might be, I can't, because it's alternate universes and I wouldn't understand the physics or the logic of it. But is there a logic there?
That's the alternate dimension stuff in Savage Dragon is probably the aspect that does my head in the most. You know, it's the part I really have a hard time keeping track of. And at first it was easy because there was only two worlds. There was the stuff prior to 76, and then there was the stuff after 76, the Image world and the Savage world, as they were colloquially known as those two universes. But then it got real tricky as there were more and more dimensions introduced, and then it's like I can't keep track of this stuff, who's from where or what. And at some point I think even Eric realized this is going to be a problem, so he kind of condensed them and brought all the different continuities, dimensions together into one world, kind of like a melding of different worlds. So there's characters running around now that have memories from dimensions and lives that they've never lived. So it's very interesting. And maybe Gavin would have been able to explain this better, but he decided he had better things to do, I think, than discuss it with us, because that part also honestly is kind of hard for me to figure out what's going on. And Eric tries to make it as simple as possible, but it's still tricky for me. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're dumb. I've spoken to you at length on several occasions, and I follow your work now. So no, you're not dumb. It could just be, again, as we were talking about before we started the show. I am, through the podcast now, but before through personally investigating and talking to people, familiar with all sorts of theories. And again, I don't have the background to make sense out of a lot of things that people are saying. And as I get older, it matters less if they know that. So it's like, I really don't understand this. So that's okay. And it could be deliberate that we're not meant to understand the mysteries of the universe. So it could be written that way too. And I'll always be unclear about exactly what is happening.
Yeah, or it could just be that Eric got bit off more than he could chew, and then it became a headache for him as well. So he tried to condense them and make it as simple as possible, so people would stop asking about it, and he wouldn't have to think about it anymore.
Now, you and Gavin and Rich and others became part of the reality of a fandom that you loved. And I know how this feels, and that's happened to me several times. One time with trauma films. I always loved the trauma movies. They were quirky and strange, and very creative, and they were ultra cheap. So you got the sense that I could make something like this,
Right.
And then I became part of Trauma, and Trauma was on my TV show, and I was appeared in their movies, and so I became part of that reality for a while. And it had happened with several other things that I was really into. I mentioned before we started that I've been published in paranormal anthologies. And when I was a kid, I grew up on these paranormal anthologies, and I wanted to be one of those guys who went out and investigated things and wrote about them, and I actually got to be that. So it was a very big, thing for me, and it impacted my life. So I'm assuming that the same with you, being part of the Savage Dragon universe that you so loved and grew up with.
Yeah, it's been real big for me. This has been like my favorite book for 75% of my life. This book has been coming out. Image Comics has been out for 30 years. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. So it's been wild. And I'm sure with you, when you got to meet Lloyd Kaufman and been such a fan for so long, and then you meet him, and then you're like, oh, he's a nice guy and he's decent and we get along well, and that's he's everything that you kind of hoped he would be, and more, right? And
Yes, yes.
it'd be a real shame if you got to meet him and like, oh, this guy sucks. And that was kind of like how it was when I met Eric. It's like I'd idolized this guy for so long, and then I met him. I'm like, oh, he's great. There's no problems with him, and I seem to agree with a lot of the things he says, and that's always helpful. But and then you got to work with some trauma stuff, and you get asked to come and do this and that, and it feels great because you're now contributing to things that you have been a fan of for so long.
Right.
Now you're a part of it. Yeah. But when you were doing that, did that feeling kind of go away? We're like, oh, now I'm just doing another trauma thing, or was it always
Not
special
really.
at the time?
Like you, I'm very creative and I have my own thing. So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't normally, because the things I like are pretty much on the fringe,
Right.
and not that many people are into them. So I'm used to just getting my joy from doing my own thing, following my bliss, as Joseph Campbell said it. So if I can become part of something that contributed toward my finding my bliss, or guiding me on my way to my bliss, then that's like an added bonus. And yeah, I don't,
Right.
yeah, and whatever length of time I wind up doing it, even if it's continuously, it's like an enhancement to my life, because now I'm part of this thing that I grew up with, that I admired, that influenced me in very, very many profound ways, and now I've become part of that thing. So I see it as a positive. I don't really see it as a loss. I see it as a win, because um, again, I grew up on this. I admired it. It inspired me. It actually helped create who I am in some weird way. And now I've become part of that. So I wasn't just an observer. I wasn't just somebody passive. I've now become an active part of this, a living part of it. And other people are being exposed to what I'm doing in this particular arena in my life.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I kind of feel the same way, but I have talked to other people where, like creative people that, like, I love Star Wars so much, but I would never want to become part of the Star Wars, because then they would lose that sense of enjoying everything as a fan. You know what I mean? Like that kind of
Yeah.
thing, where it would still very special to them as something that they can observe and absorb, rather than become part of the creative process, where some of the magic kind of gets lost. But for me in Savage Dragon, it's like, yeah, every chance that I can get to become part of this is great. Even back when I was just writing in letters for the letters pages, if I could just get my name printed in it, be part of the book, let the world know that Mark Welser liked Savage Dragon at one point, that was good enough for me.
With becoming part of the fandom, that I did that with Star Trek for a while, and that's one of the times when my wife and I crossed paths, because she was a Star Trek fan also, and we were doing original stuff. You know, we were creating our own stuff. I wove in, of course, a lot of mythology. There was Greek and Norse mythology and other mythologies I mixed into what I was doing. And because we used to go to the conventions, and we meet with the people on the show, writers, actors, you know, all sorts of people. The guy who wrote the Klingon language, you know, eventually some of the things that we did wound up as canon. You know, the fan
Really?
things we did wound up as part of the story. So there too, you know, without intending to, you know, we influenced the overall mythology. Like for instance, the Klingons, they were kind of like, initially they were like the Russians, they were like communists. And then, you know, later on they were like reptilian type of people. We made them like kind of like Viking bikers from hell, with heavy mythical and honor elements and stuff like that. And that's how we played it. And over years, that's how the Klingons became. Because, I don't know, again, what amount of our inspiration contributed to that. But we were doing that long before it became, how the Klingons actually were. It was
That's really interesting, yeah, because now when you think of Klingons, that's like the whole core
Right.
of their identity now. That's really interesting.
So again, it could be coincidental. It could be, they were drinking from the same waters. It could be because they saw us doing it at a convention. They thought it was cool and decided to run, with the idea. Who knows? But it was like fun being part of that. In one of the books too, I based what I was doing on Thor. And so I used to carry a sort of sledgehammer with like runes on it. And in one of the books, they talk about how the Klingon Thunderer had a hammer and stuff like that, and that was obviously a reference to me and my hammer. So,
Nice.
Again, interesting stuff. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. But if you had influenced it, you'd find a new level of coolness because now you're part of that mythology that that you grew up with and loved.
Yeah, that's true. We back in the early 2000s, we had a online Savage Dragon fan group called the Brotherhood of the Fin, which was there was also the FAO, the Fin Addicts Online group that was going on that preceded us, but they had a lot of rules and were very stuffy, and so we kind of broke off and started our own faction, our own Savage Dragon group, Brother of the Fin, and we had a website and everything. And then later in the book, there's kind of a cult and church of people who worship and celebrate the Savage Dragon in the comic. And they became like the Church of the Brotherhood of the Fin. So we're like, hey, that's
cool.
us. That's us. Yeah.
That's a great feeling, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just when Gavin started getting credited as an editor, even though I'm not Gavin, it felt like, hey, that's one of us. We've made it. Now we're part of the book now. And so his victory was everyone's victory,
And you guys know each other for years too. Like I was very surprised to learn that you and Gavin had never really interacted face to face before we did the podcast, because you've known each other for very many years.
Yeah, and he's a hard guy to get a hold of too. And so, and our schedules are different because he's on a different, completely part of the planet. But sometimes I'll be up late and I'll get him on chat or whatever, and we'll be able to talk. But yeah, that's the first time we'd ever spoken to each other for as long as we've known each other, and it was nice.
It was.
Thank you for making that happen.
My pleasure. Now we're approaching the end of our time for today. And again, you're a very creative creator, and that one image you had of like Hercules in the last issue of Gods of Brutality.
I think there's been enough time. We can describe what happened now if you want to. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. That's great art. I wanted that on a poster to put on my workout room. That is like phenomenal what you accomplished in that picture. And I like your art I like all your other art as well, but that one, it became iconic and epic. What inspired that picture? Because again, I love your art, but that was like a whoa.
I don't know. It's all just kind of trying to solve problems that Rich creates in the story that he sends me. Not a problem, but it was the way he wrote it was, I think, like full page of Hercules ripping the heart out of the lava queen through her breast, and so it's just trying to figure out what a good angle is, and how much gore and what Hercules' face should be. I don't know. I can't really explain how I came up with the design. Basically, I was trying to make sure that I had a shot that hadn't been done by a million other artists before, and something we haven't seen too much of. That's always my biggest concern is, does this look too much like something that everyone's seen already? And if it does, I try to avoid that route, if I have enough time. If I don't have time, then it's gonna look like everything else that everybody's done already. But that's really the biggest thing that goes through my head is how can I convey this information in an interesting visual way? And Rich liked that one too. So there must be something about that page that really worked, huh?
Yeah, definitely. And again, not that your other art doesn't work. Your entire take and the way you present it works. You have a very distinct style. And as you pointed out the other times, yes, you were inspired by different people and different types of things, and you experiment. But there's something distinctly you about the art also. And I'm seeing the same thing in the Dracula pictures too. So that's you. That's your style. That's there underneath all your work, and it's great. But that one was transcendent. That picture kind of like, it's like, whoa, it went beyond. It's like Barry Windsor-Smith's picture of Conan standing on top of the mountain that got made into like 1 million posters, including blacklight posters back in the day. That was that type of image that I can imagine it on posters, on lunchboxes.
I think just a snapshot of raw violence, I think, is pretty much all it takes, right?
I guess, but the colors were perfect. Everything was like perfect.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
And as we close today, we talked about this before, and you answered it before, but again, you become part of the legends that you grew up with, and you've contributed to them, and the mythology is expanded now because of you, and you're part of that mythology. And is there anything that you feel compelled, like I have something in my head, a few things that I like are in my head. I do the things inside my head eventually, but I'm working towards doing those bigger things by doing smaller things. Do you have something inside your head that moves you forward? Like you have like a big project that's still nebulous that you're working towards bringing into being?
Not really. I'm usually just focus on whatever I'm working on at the time becomes like my main. I put all my energy into that. I try not to plan ahead as much as possible. I'm always this is what we're doing today. This is what I'm terrible at planning ahead, and my wife could tell you that as well. It's always whatever's happening right now, that's where I'm at. So I don't have really anything. I think eventually I would like to get to a point where I can write my own stuff. I'm not there yet, but we'll see. Just so I could give Rich a break and he can focus on all the other millions and millions of projects that he wants to work on instead. Not instead, but I guess in addition to, but because he's got lots of ideas. I don't have very many, but maybe one of these days I'd like to do my own stuff and just see how I go solo. But that's really it. Nothing really concrete about what that would look like, but eventually I'll do something.
Well, I enjoy speaking with you very much, and you're going to be a repeat guest on these podcasts for quite a while. So hopefully we'll watch that come into being as the conversation progresses over time.
Yeah, we'll see. Thanks for having me on here. It's always interesting talking to you. Even when we were talking before we were recording, some of the most interesting stuff I think we talked about was not recorded.
Same here, and eventually it'll get recorded. Everything does. Conversations pop up. Anything else we should know about that's new, exciting, or coming soon?
No, not really. Everything has been announced. It's just kind of waiting and seeing when that happens. I don't have any dates or anything. June is the Super Freaks book. I wish I could name everybody that's involved with that, but there's about 1 million guys and gals. I think, let's face it, mostly it's guys that are working on that, but that'll be really fun to get that. Beyond that, I have no news, no updates.
Okay, and how can people reach you? How can they explore your many works?
I'm sorry, my internet is terrible down here. I missed what you just said.
How can people contact you, and how can they explore your creative work?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm usually on Facebook. That's about it because I am too technologically inept to figure out all the other platforms. So if you want to find me, I'm on Facebook. Look for my name. You'll usually tell which one is me.
Thank you very much, sir. As always, I enjoyed our conversation a great deal and look forward to the next one. Thanks to everybody who'll be listening to this in a day or two. I just figured out how to put things on YouTube, so I've been posting things on YouTube. And until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Take care. And again, thanks again, Mark.
Thank you. Good journey, everybody.